Well, I'd like to introduce Nick Del Grosso and Javier Martinez Alcantara, a couple of neuroscientists from Munich, and they're going to speak about something neuroscience and Python. And they will introduce themselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, we're lab mates in a neuroscience lab in Munich. We want to, every day we use Python. And we get the sense that we do something quite special. We want to share to new neuroscientists why Python is such a useful tool for neuroscience, especially in the beginning when you're trying to select which language to use. It's all kind of intimidating. And also for those who already know Python, what we do in neuroscience, so that you can get a better appreciation of kind of why the batteries included aspect of Python is so attractive to us, and why it's been such a great tool.
Exactly. And let's start just by describing a little bit what is this broad field of neuroscience. Then briefly, what we're trying to do is record and understand the signals that are here on the brain and link it with the behavior of the subject to understand better how we process the information and how we process the reality. And well, we introduce ourselves with this slide. My name is Javier Martinez, and he's Nick Del Grosso. I have been focused mainly in the development of an interface for different kind of experiments related with the memory consolidation, especially during sleep. And in this picture, you can grasp an idea of my project. This is the interface where the experiments take place, and the rat, the animal, has to distinguish some kind of odors, consolidated in the memory, and afterward we record the signals from the brain.
And in my project, I'm studying spatial perception, how the sensory input becomes some complex representation of our world. And to do that, I designed a virtual reality system for rats so that they could run around a virtual environment, and we could use behavior tracking and simultaneous brain recordings in order to build a map of what they perceive and be able to manipulate it in real time. And in all parts of our projects, Python is there. From presenting the stimuli to our subjects to analyzing the final data and every machine and interface in between. And in order to do that, we're going to start from data collection from the beginning and just kind of walk you through all the steps of a typical behavior cognitive type project and just show different Python packages that are involved. In addition, we're going to show code snippets from every Python package that's involved, making this a marathon tutorial of about 20 Python packages in about, I think we've got 20 minutes left.
Not so much, but yeah.
We can do it. I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a tour what we want to offer you, like a small window to the science and to neuroscience through Python. Mm-hmm. Then the first start is of this tour is the recollection of the data. We have some hypotheses, and we have to design the experiments that could check this hypothesis. And for that, the first step is the recollection of the data.
Cognitive neuroscience simulates the brain as a kind of function. Sensory input goes in, something happens in the brain, behavior comes out. And so we can't start studying it unless we're going to put sensory input in. And Python's got a bunch of visual stimuli, audio stimuli, all kinds of stimuli packages that have standard ways to display these things to our animals and to humans. PsychoPy is probably the most popular one. PsychoPy comes with a lot of built-in visual stimuli that are really common in visual neuroscience packages, studies. To do it, it's really easy to use. You make a window using its visual subpackage. You choose the stimulus that you want to display and any parameters that you need. In this case, we're putting in the center of the screen. And then you build a while loop and give the draw command and say, draw the stimulus to that window. And then tell it to go to your display. That's a really great way to be able to start building experiments. Of course, you don't just have to do standard 2D things. You can do custom graphics as well. Python has a few really nice 2D game engines, PyGlit and Pygame being the most popular. I've wrapped, because they link to OpenGL, I've wrapped it with my own 3D OpenGL library and used that to actually derive a real-time virtual reality system. And people say that Python is slow because it's dynamic or whatever, but because of the modern OpenGL package system that's underlying everything, you just have to connect to some really high-performance stuff. Mm-hmm. So my virtual reality system is running in 360 hertz, but I don't have to program in anything but Python. To do that, it's the same. You make a window, and then because it's an event loop program, you put your draw command in an onDraw function, and then just say run the app. I want to give you an idea of what this virtual reality system kind of looks like. You're going to see a video of a top-down video of me holding a rat with a big arena on there. I put the rat onto a board that's hovering above the floor of the arena, and he looks from one side to the other. And although we see a lot of movement from his perspective, it looks like there's a big cliff down there. And rats are really cautious. They don't like to jump off big things. So eventually, when he decides to jump off and run around, he's going to jump off onto the safe side. And we use experiments like this when I was designing the virtual reality system to show that rats do perceive virtual environments. One of the first steps to building a new setup in order to do some interesting cognitive experiments.
Yes, thanks. Let me go back to the presentation. Yes. Here we are. In addition to this kind of visual stimuli, sometimes we want to interact to other sensory systems. NICs really work intensively with the visual system. In my case, I try to work more intensively with the odor system, basically the smell, and how the animal processes this information. And for that, we need some kind of system that delivers the odors, the smells, and that deliver the reward. And you can see our solution here and the potential of Python for that. We have a really nice library, which is the serial library by serial, that is able to control this hardware that is based on the famous board Arduino, and control the different valves for releasing the odors and releasing the water to the animal. Then the code is relatively simple, and well, most probably you can understand everything. This is just the definition of the serial port. Call it Arduino, and for sending a message to the Arduino board and release, for example, in this case, the water at the right part of the maze, is just sending the encode message with the right command. To receive information from Arduino, we have just to call the readline function and get that information and process it in the manner or in the way that we prefer.
Right. PySerial is great for connecting to anything on your serial port. If you want to connect to something on a network, Python's built-in sockets module is fantastic for that. I have a 3D tracking system that I use for my VR, and for that, I need to receive XYZ position. Where is the rat's head? I get that data over the network. I make a socket to say where I should connect to, and then use the receive function to receive the data. Python's built-in struct package is fantastic for breaking down byte strings into individual variables. I can say that this message has 3 floats, put it into 3 variables. And that gets me back into Python and working with Python objects again, which I find very convenient. We don't only build our own custom hardware, though. A lot of the devices we use are commercial devices. And Python's so popular that a lot of companies are supplying Python libraries to it. Even our video projector, the one I use for my VR system, has a Python interface. I can turn it on and do all the settings and even control when it's going to display something directly from Python. Sometimes there's proprietary software when you connect to a device, and they provide just C headers, but that's no problem too. Python C types and Cython packages make calling C functions from Python fairly simple as well. You just say where your C header file is, which C functions you want to call, and then you make a Python function that calls the function. And then from there, you're back in Python. Being able to control all your devices from one language gives you opportunities that might not have seemed obvious at first. By being able to control my projector and my 3D tracker all in the same script, I was able to really easily build something new, a 3D scanner out of those 2 devices. And for that, I scan any arena we put in, which allows us to put a virtual reality layer on top of any maze or any labyrinth that we have. A really kind of cool application.
Exactly, Nick. And indeed, the convenience of this, of Python, is that you can work at different levels. No? We have seen really complex 3D tracking system, but sometimes you don't want to have this system, or you don't need it for your experiment. But it's important nonetheless to track the position of the animal and execute different commands depending on that position. Then for that, we have a really cool bindings in Python of the OpenCV system. Then this allows us to track the animal with really simple command. I will just explain a little bit the snippet. Calling OpenCV and tell him to the device from which it has to capture, which in this case is a webcam. Read from the webcam, and basically what this line does is generating a model of the background to subtract from every single frame that we acquire from the webcam. We process it a little bit, just blurring and thresholding it, and at the end we have a bunch of clusters of pixels that change with respect to this background. And the largest cluster in the arena is our animal. I will show you this video, which probably is more attractive to you. The video shows how the system is performing. We have our rat in this maze, this arena. And you can see in the largest cluster that I referred before is the green area. The red rectangle is just the rectangle that contains that cluster. In this way, we are able to compute, also thanks to OpenCV, the centroid of this area, of this large cluster, and have a really good estimation of the position of the animal in the arena. And this is really important for neuroscience, because a lot of the encoding of the brain is linked to the position in the space.
Yeah, what we've done here is I think, pretty amazing.
It's good.
Normally, you pay about 2,000 euros to get a box that has a bunch of buttons for a neuroscience lab like this. And now you can just put a webcam on it and control your experiment that way. That opens up a lot of possibilities.
And on top of that, we have more possibilities. Because in a lab, there are a lot of people that are not linked to your experiment, are not related, but nonetheless, to some degree, have to work with your setup. And not only that, well, it's also convenience to you to convey all the information that you are recording in a single view. And the possibility of the package of the PyQt package to do this is really powerful. And this is just an example of how to generate a window and add 2 buttons to the window and show the window here. In this video, you can see the setup that we use in my experiments. This is the same video you saw before, but now integrated in the user interface. You can see a bunch of data. This is the communication with Arduino through the serial port that I mentioned before. This is This is the signal from ultrasound microphone in the room to see what is happening or whether the animal is vocalizing. This is the information about the leaking of the animal in the reward, and we know how eager is the animal or how engaged is in the task, and this is the speed. As you can see, it's really powerful to have this tool, to have this package that in a relatively easy way allows you to have this. And at this point, here we are. We have our setup ready to be used. We have our subject, we have nice signals, we have the animal moving, controlling everything, thanks to Python.
So we can publish?
No, not yet.
Okay.
This is data analysis conference. We have to do something in between, no?
All right, fine. Okay, so we have to analyze data. We've got a lot of data. Well, you know, it's not going to be very useful to analyze our data if we can't get our data into Python in the first place. And I'm so glad that Python has a bunch of packages for reading the data. Of course, the best thing is if you can see the data while you're programming in it. Spider and Jupyter allow interactive data workflows that make doing data analysis really convenient. you can try out a few lines. You can see what's inside your variables. You can even see the plots that are generated from the code next to the code, next to the formulas and documentation and links to the whatever resources to explain why you did it. Being able to document your process while you're doing it is incredibly valuable.
Especially the Jupyter notebook is really cool when you are working in a large lab, when you have to interact with many people and show results to your supervisor or the colleagues in an easy way.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about this?
What about this? Well, Python has a lot of data reading programs, not only for neuroscience specific data, like the NEO package, which has a bunch of electrophysiology data reading functions. Also, there's a big program we want to advertise called OpenEFizz, a group that is building open source amplifiers for collecting eFizz data really cheaply and really quickly. And they provide, of course, a Python interface. Pandas lets you read in data tables into data frames from all kinds of formats, and that's usually just a simple read function. You can connect to any relational database through Pandas and SQL Alchemy, and even just save your Python objects to load them later through Python's built-in pickle package. Dumping the data and loading it, reading it, loading it. Usually you just have to look for one of those words and you've got your data inside Python. That's really fantastic.
Exactly. And once we have the data, we need something powerful to process it. And this is a bit scary, having Jaime here. Having listening is really nice, because listening Travis yesterday, I also realized, and you probably know the advantages, but basically NumPy, what provides is really powerful tool to work with n-dimensional matrices. And this really fit some mental schemes that you may have through linear algebra or through working really high dimensional data. In our case, the data is or could be things as three-dimensional, like time, voltage, and channels that we have, but at the end we have much more dimension, like the number of animals. We transform it to the Fourier domain, and we have many more. Then NumPy is really powerful, working with long or large amount of data, power into the square is really easy task. Reshape it, which is really convenient when you work with different kind of dimension and you want to change the shape of your matrix for doing some computation. Is also a really easy task, and it's really powerful to select in which dimension you want to work just using this label. And it's even more powerful. I mean, you can do a lot of linear algebra, like computing the covariance matrix in a set of features of the spike from the brain, and computing the singular value, the composition, to get some kind of PCA. And on top of that is Pandas, isn't it? That provides a really powerful interface when you work with data frames or time series, which is mainly our case.
Yeah, I love that Pandas, working with Pandas always keeps your data labeled. It just, you come back to your analysis and you still understand what you did. And that's just, I love that.
Yeah, but we need more or even powerful computation. It's not so, and so here. Yeah, because the brain works at different rhythms. It's really important to work in the spectral domain for us. Then for that we have SciPy, especially the signal processing package or library that allows, this is a simple example, but you can do tons of operations related with Fourier transform and so on. This is an example of a filter, no? I mean, we have really noisy signal here, and we want to filter it. Stop here. And we want to filter, and we select the filter band between 120 to 120 hertz, because that's really interesting, especially in the hippocampus in the brain, but that's another topic. We can easily generate a Butterworth filter with the different parameters, and just calling the field signal, we can have this smooth version of the noisy data that conveys the information we are looking for.
We collect a lot of data. And a lot of times, an important step is to find out which features are important.
Exactly. And the features that are important, well, for that we need some machine learning. We have the scikit-learn, which is huge. I really love it, appreciate it, and we saw an easy example of a linear interpolation here. But the point is that you can do really supervised and supervised learning, as you may know. And it's really cool that more or less the procedure to use it is kind of similar, independent of the algorithm that you want to use. Because you have to select the proper model from the library and generate the model. And once you have the model, just call this function fit using your data or the data you want to fit to that model. And that's all. This is an example of a different weight of the animals while doing the tasks through days. And as you can see, some animals really are correlated, the losing of weight with the learning capacities of the animal, and some animals not. Why? I don't know. But it's super powerful, and I really like the same way of the procedural way of doing the different computations.
SciPy Stats is a really powerful statistical package as well. It's essential for doing statistics in order to find out that if the patterns you found are actually significant. It supplies all the basic statistical functions that you would want to do, your t-test functions there, your ANOVA functions there, and a lot of times it's as simple as supplying a list or usually a NumPy array and being able to find out what your p-value is and what your statistical value is. Really convenient. Of course, it also has all the statistical distributions built in and a common interface between all of them, so that if you find out your data isn't normally distributed, or it's actually a binomial or a gamma distribution, you can just change a single line and all of your code will still work. You can simulate new data, and you can use that to analyze your data a little better. Stats models allows you to use an R-like statistical equation language called PATSI, which lets you describe more complicated models and see the relationships between all of them. Being able to just say what kind of model you want to fit and give a summary of how all those your parameters are related in a single table is just super convenient.
And now it's time to show the results.
Oh yeah. Python has a lot of data visualization packages. Most of them are built on top of Matplotlib, a great low-level MATLAB-like interface that lets you build any kind of plot you want. For example, this jump trace on the top right hand, you can actually see the rat jumping off the board onto the place below. Seaborn lets you build. If you're going to build a complex plot, though, there are a lot of kind of mistakes you can make that may prevent you from being able to build something that's easily interpretable. And Seaborn provides a lot of single functions that let you build complex, fantastic plots that are built on top of Matplotlib. And because they're built on Matplotlib, you can customize those Seaborn plots to edit it the way you want to represent your data. Being able to load in your data, transform it, and then see what that looks like graphically in a rapid fashion lets you iterate quickly and get to the essential core of what your data is representing.
Exactly. And now, at this point, okay, now we are ready to publish. We went through the whole process thanks to Python, thanks to this wonderful ecosystem of libraries, and we are ready to submit our paper. Achieve. Then, the message that we want to convey here is that Python has a rich ecosystem of packages for all the people, but especially for neuroscientists. And this is an advice maybe for people starting their studies, that they can really use Python for a wide range of tasks in the neuroscience field and in science in general. And that is really, really convenient. We have how many packages?
We've shown more than 20 already.
Okay. Yeah, more or less in time.
We still have 10 minutes to go. We can do some more. Python is the programming language in the end, just like any programming language. But, and like any programming language, you can do whatever you want with it. what makes Python so useful for scientists is how easy to read the language is, and more importantly, how big the scientific community is. You have developers building tools for scientists in a language they like working with, and scientists building tools, using those tools and improving them themselves. Having those two groups together, always interacting, always learning together, and always advertising and being able to share their work in an open source fashion is what makes Python such a great community beyond just a tool.
Exactly, and this is the question, no? We were talking and we were discussing why Python has so many results. Basically, the answer that we reach is because of you. The community is the important part, not only scientific, but the whole Python community. Because basically you help to develop, you are engaged in improving the quality of the packages, and our goal or message is, let's keep working on this. Let's improve the communication between scientific, industry, companies, local communities, international communities, everybody, to increase the quality of the packages and the easy, the availability of the packages.
Yeah, that's right. So we can do more interesting and more scientific research.
And that's why we thank you to all of you for coming here, for this, to the organizer especially, for these great talks. And finally, the people who help us for being here, our supervisor, Professor Anton Sirota, which lead a really cool neuroscience lab, the CNS and the Synergy cluster in Munich that provides some funding, and of course the organization of the PyData conference here in Barcelona. Of course, to all of you for being here, for investing your time and listening to us. Thank you very much. Now, well, if you have any question, feel free. There is one question. Yeah, sorry.
First of all, I would like to say that that was an amazing talk. Really, it was very inspiring and was very well organized. And if I will have a company, I will hire for sure someone like you. But in any case,
is this recorded?
yeah. Someone should listen about that. But I am also a researcher, so I really appreciate the work that you are doing. And I would like to know if you also are working with functional magnetic resonance imaging, and if you also if there exist some packages for treating that kind of images, or it's completely something.
I've worked with some MRI data in Python. The DIPY package has a lot of tools already for doing diffusion tensor imaging and loading and visualizing MRI data. A great resource for finding more Python packages for scientific use is SciPy's topical software page. You can look up your field, and it provides a great curated list of packages that are available, and you'll probably find a few great ones there.
Thanks.
Thanks for the talk. It was very, very entertaining. I have one question. I mean, to be able to do the kind of things that you are doing with all these packages, you have to invest a non-negligible amount of time mastering them. And you're doing your research on top of that.
Yes.
And the question is, how do you manage? And aren't you afraid that you'd eventually get sucked away from neuroscience and end up being just a plain developer like most of us? Because what you're doing is super cool, so you should keep at it, right? So, but I'm interested in how you handle that divide between all the effort you have to put into doing all these cool Python things and sticking to your research.
That's a great question, and that does come up in our discussions in the lab.
Yeah.
The key seems to be education in basic programming principles and good practices. When you have to figure out programming all by yourself at the computer from scratch, it is a lot of effort. But if you have a course or a workshop available by someone who can take you through those first steps, being able to run a script, being able to organize your code, and actually getting you to write a few functions so that you understand about the principles of reusable code, it cuts down that time dramatically. So Python's active community has been very helpful in smoothing that learning process. Of course, the Python language is made to be a learning language as well, and it has some built-in kind of features that help you along that curve, but we need more.
Yeah, and I would like to say that, of course, it's a great burden for newcomers. Well, when you are starting the PhD, you are completely lost. You don't know. Well, you start getting in touch with the community. It's really nice to have a community in your institute or the faculty where you are working. Then I would suggest you, if you try to or can do it, because this interaction made that transition easier, much easier. And in addition, I will send a message to the PIs of the world. Please hire more computer science people in the neuroscience and in other scientific fields, because I'm an engineer. I'm in a neurobiology department, and these interactions between different fields increase the pace of science, increase the pace of the improvement of the society, because, well, many of you probably are computer science. You have the knowledge about many of these things, and this collaboration is fundamental for.
Yeah, but if you can help, if you work in a lab and you've kind of gone through all that curve, look around at your lab mates and sit down with them, mentor them, help guide them through that process. You'll help them out quite a bit, and you'll grow the Python community.
So this is a terrific project. Just a curiosity. For how long have you been working on this?
I have been working for 2 years in this unique.
I'm ending my PhD this year, and that means in neuroscience that usually means about 5 years. So this is my 5th year. We've done a lot of sub-projects. We're not showing everything that we've done within the PhD. One of the great things about doing science is that you're always challenged with new questions, new tasks, or something doesn't work or works better than you expected and leads you in an unexpected direction. So it's been a lot of fun and really exciting.
Yeah, you learn a lot. Quite challenging, but a lot. You learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions?
So that was really a great talk as well. I really enjoyed it. That's kind of the same question, but what was the most time-consuming thing you had to learn?
For me, writing this 3D wrapper around PyGlit and CyclePy was a challenge, because I had to learn how to write a good software stack, learning good object-oriented programming design principles, going through all those stumbling blocks. With just books and blogs available, took a lot of time. I had to rewrite my library 3 times, and learning more and more on the way, of course. But it was a time investment.
Yeah. And also, sometimes the interaction with the hardware could be complicated, because you have to be really aware of the timings between the signals, between the hardware and your requirements. I mean, the animals and the signal of the brains move fast, and you have to be really accurate with the precision.
Mm-hmm. Thank you also for this amazing talk. One question that makes me curious about your work is to ask it in a Python way. Is there a result in your research that you couldn't have obtained in the same amount of time if you hadn't used Python, or all these libraries available?
In my case,
or several.
I will say if I didn't use, or if I have not used Python, I will have to use C++, which for me personally is much more difficult. Then for the data analysis, I think I could not have done it faster with any other tool.
A lot of the data the data analysis problems we're facing don't have commercial solutions yet. They're coming. I see every once in a while. We see neuroscientists who have designed a solution in order to help scientists be able to process their data faster. But the unusual nature of every behavioral experiment means that we have to build new equipment, and we're collecting it in a slightly different way or in a slightly different format. Yeah. And you can kind of bog yourself down in a new commercial technology stack. Being comfortable with Python takes some of the stress away, because you know that even though you'll have to deal with these things, you don't have to switch languages to do it, and that's really pleasant.
Let's thank the speakers again.
Thank you very much.